The information we're going to get is unbelievable. So welcome back to another video. This one is a bit nerdy, but I'm super looking forward to this. We are at Oldham Engines and we are tonight got the chance to play with these two creations. So let me tell you what they are. This one is the very first Swindon Racing XE cylinder head of Jim Pocklington's chassis #1 touring car. So that is the head with the throttle bodies on the rear, non-reversed. And then we've been able to borrow from the legend Tony Absalon, thank you mate for this, this is a reverse cylinder head of one of the late Vectras. This is his spare cylinder head, so we can have a look at it, see what differences there are, measure some things, and then fingers crossed in a future video I'll tell you more about it as we go through. We're flying back to Ireland and we're going to flow bench all the cylinder head ranges to see which one is best. So let's dive in and let's see whether the myths are right about the Swindon Racing XE cylinder heads. So let's start with this one that a lot of people will know and how it works, and this is the conventional way of a C20XE cylinder head. Obviously it has the Swindon cover. These are obviously the inlet ports, and obviously that's the water jacket on the inlet side. So this is kind of the conventional setup. With what you'd have on this back end are the two verniers for the timing belt, and the exhaust is on that side. So then going across to the reverse cylinder head, same principle, throttle body's on this side, but this is where the two verniers would sit, and this is where the two blanking plates would sit, making this the reverse cylinder head. So let's have a look at some differences you can visually see without going into numbers, because I'm not doing that on this video, but we'll go into the visual differences. So if you look at the inlet port on the original head, it has this cutout here for the injectors. The reverse cylinder head doesn't. So that would say then Swindon later on down the line would have got a bare casting and would have machined it themselves. And another interesting thing, this is a GM cylinder head and this is a Coscast cylinder head. I don't know why they've changed, I don't know what the development was, but that was a difference. So let's look at what makes the cam timing different. So on the original, as you would guess, totally standard place where the cams would go, normal slip seals, nothing over fancy. But then going to this cylinder head, still has the casting marks for them, but there are two blanking plates which go in them two areas to stop this from obviously pushing oil out from where they originally were. And then they have machined, if you would have seen my previous video with one of these cylinder heads on the car, these are aluminium like spacers for the verniers to sit on this side to run the timing belt down. That's the main difference on what we can see with these cylinder heads to make them so the cams can run on this back edge. Other than that, port sizes are quite significantly larger from the two, but other than that, the only thing we did pick up on is the throttle bodies on each one is doweled. As you can see, a doweling mark. Now this would be for, so when they bolted the throttle bodies to the cylinder heads, they were 100% flowed between the body and the port. There was no step, they would always be sit straight into the right place because of that dowel. And even to the point to point out is, if you look at the bolt holes here, 1, 2, and then there's 3 there, they should be, if you look at when we're going to show in a minute, 1, 2, they are the same bolt fitment here. Everything is identical. 1, 2, 1, 2. You can see there all the holes line up and would bolt up. Whether that means they were machined kind of the same way, they had a jig, I don't know, but they are kind of reference points which match up. So let's spin these heads round and let's have a look at the exhaust side. So we flipped them round. As we can visually see, there's no real much difference. Other than obviously the casting of the GM and the Coscast, they both look very much identical. There's no like certain one-off bits, any pieces. Obviously port sizes are different because obviously you've got the early development to the late development, but visually they look the same. And also to confirm, if you look there, VR001. That there is Jim's car, is chassis number 1, but the actual VIN number on it is, I think it's 011. So that confirms that that's the cylinder head. The reason why it's an 11 is the company that made the cars, they always numbered each car when they made it. So technically, 1 to 10 might have been Mondeo's or whatever it was at the time, and then Jim's was car number 11 that they'd manufactured. So that confirms that this is obviously the very first Swindon Racing head. And obviously, Tony's confirmed that this is off the Vetra, and the reason why that is, these two back plates are slightly different to the Cavalier, to the Vetra. So what he says is, he cannot just bolt this onto his Cavalier engine because these plates are slightly different, so he has to swap these. So these two plates are the original ones from the Vetra. Other little subtle differences are, with the rock covers, this one's got an oil fill, this one hasn't. I have no idea why it'd have an oil fill because we run a dry sump, but it does. And then another slight subtle difference is, on the early one, it's like an XE in the middle with the standard plug holes. On the late one, it's quite open. Now, we don't know whether the Vetras run a coil pack. Possible they might have developed a bit further on and had to run a coil pack. That's something we're going to research and look into and see why that's the difference. Let's take the rocker covers off and have a look at the valve train area and see what differences we can see there. With the rocker covers off, obviously you can see where the back end of the cylinder head has been machined for these two cam carriers, which obviously, as we've seen, bolt into the side of the head. And it doesn't look like there's anything special about where they've machined it. It just looks like it's been opened up, and all the engineering wise has gone into these back plates to support the cam. Not massive amounts of work on this back end. So then as we look at where the cams sit, you can see where this has all been channeled out for the massive lobes on whatever cams this head was spec to do. Where on the original, it was all hand done, rather than what that the other one looks like it's been machine done. But they obviously realised they needed to make some clearance on that area. Both of these cylinder heads run dowels to keep the cylinder head in line. I would have thought that's for easy location and to stop the gasket from moving. Big differences on the reversed head is tappet size. Obviously both engines run solid lifters, but the solid lifters on the reverse head are larger than the ones on the standard head, and what you class as standard size. So this head runs a standard size solid lifter. This one is slightly bigger, and I wonder if you can just make that out where it's slightly bigger. You can just see it's slightly bigger. And also the design is different. So that's got a very large platform that sticks out. This has got a very short, and that design is reflected in the valve designs. This one is the reverse head, this one is the original Swindon head. Obviously 5mm stem on the valve, 5mm, 7mm on the early one. Length is different, single collet, obviously original collet size, and then to make up for seat pressure, they run double valve springs, but they have an additional shim at the bottom of the seat. That's to increase, obviously, the seat pressure with the double springs. So it shows that there was many different designs. Also, the actual solid lifter shim sits really deeply on the head there. You can see how much of the top of the valve is sticking out and how much that shim sits on. Because we've had in the past where we've had the shims fall off when they've been on this original kind of design. But this would have sorted that problem out, meaning that this engine could rev to whatever it wanted to and not have that issue. So it shows that Swindon has seen the same things that we have and changed it as the development's gone on. So we flipped around to show you where there is a massive difference between the pair. Also reinforces that they would have had a blind casting from Coscast or whoever to make this final development, because you can see where it's been unmachined where the original one's machined. So anyone who knows high-powered sealets will know this area here is very common for blowing the gasket, for if you're running high boost on a sealet, it'll melt that through. It's a major concern, is that area. And to also point out, these are water returns. So look at the Swindon Racing reversed head. They have left all the meat on, just put a fine hole, plus just put two smaller holes into the head for the water. You can see where the gasket size is slightly bigger. And again, I would have thought that is for water circulation to keep this area strong. Again, it's showing that Swindon have seen what we have seen with the drag racing and the high-powered C-lets just in that area. Another major feature you'll pick up on is this area with the slight groove. This is obviously the oil feed for the cylinder head, which is centre, obviously this side. This side, obviously you can see, because it's been reversed, has had to be machined in that area. We also guess when they've put these as a smaller size, we obviously think, well, how have they, returned water? So if you look, they've put these additional holes in areas where this one hasn't got them. So that there is obviously how they would have got around water flow and getting, water away from blocking this area up here, because obviously if you look on both of these, they don't run the outlet pipes like we would on the end of the cylinder heads. Other little thing we've picked up on is, and we don't know why, is if you look at this end, this on the reverse head, it has these two indentations, where this one, the original, doesn't. We have no idea why that is. It's one of them features we've picked up on when poking around with the two heads. Another little thing is they've machined this flat, and I can only presume that is for probably a starter, an alternator or something for clearance, because obviously you span it round and it needs a bit of clearance to clear a certain item that's round the back of the cylinder head. That's what that looks like it's done. Big design feature is, if you look at the bowl design, it's all smooth in this area, and here it's all smooth down. But if you look at this one, it's all left in. So that would obviously then adjust the compression ratio of the cylinder head. Obviously we're going to measure everything and work everything out for our own educational purposes, but they're little features that we've picked up on of the pair. Well, subtle difference people won't pick up on, but again, just to try and show this, if you look at the valve seat cutting angle here, it's still the conventional, what we'd class as a 3-angled seat, but very big areas of the 3-angle seat. And this is the original Swindon head. And if you look at the later one, you can see the 3-angle seat is tiny, but it's been smoothed so much more into the port on the back edge. It's phenomenal. This head is a work of art. Another little thing we've picked up on, which is always debated, is do you blend in the valve guide? Obviously on the Swindon one, the late Swindon reverse head, it's still sticking out, not blended in, as is the early one, which is only slightly sticking out. But I would have thought, thinking about it, and obviously me and Tom discussing it, is because the valves are longer and thinner, it needs more support for the longer, thinner valve, hence it's sticking out more, where the thicker valve can sit slightly more into the cylinder head. So we're going to look at some other little bits and pieces. The reverse head is on 2mm oversize, the original heads are on 1mm oversize, and the double valve springs are super close. How this doesn't get coil bind, I never know. They're super close in there, to the point of they hardly move. So that's a really nice design. We've got into some details. We're obviously, me and Tom are going to measure everything now. We're going to see the cylinder heads. We're going to check port sizes. We're going to measure everything just for educational purposes, because to get these two cylinder heads together side by side and to be able to measure each one, look at one and look at the other, and basically get our hands on what we class as the holy grail of XE cylinder heads, the information we're going to get is unbelievable. We are writing everything down, because not only is it going to help us in the future to obviously make, for Tom to make his cylinder heads better, it's also information for us, to maybe pass on to people, to learn, and for only, because once this is gone, we're never going to see it again. And it's interesting to see when Money No Object, Swindon Racing, have an unlimited budget, what they can do to these cylinder heads. So there's a little in-depth video of what's the difference between the Swindon reversed head and the standard-ish Swindon head. They're both different directions of reverse and non-reverse. So the next tech video you'll see with these heads will be me and Jim, who owns the Cavalier touring car, we are driving to Ireland with loads of parts, and we are going to put on the flow bench the reverse cylinder head, the standard direction chassis number 1 Swindon cylinder head. We've got a UK CNC'd cylinder head, and also the gentleman we're going seeing is MED race engines. He has his own cylinder heads CNC'd, and he has said to me he's been doing them heads for probably 30 years, and he has never seen a cylinder head flow any more than his. So he is looking forward to having these, having his, and we'll have a full comparison of technically what is the best C20XE flowing cylinder head design there is, period. And we'll have the numbers from the flow bench to back it up. So we'll sign it off. I hope you enjoyed that. Some a little different, a little bit more technical, but me and Tom have been in it and we've super enjoyed it, and we've got many hours to go measuring and writing everything down. So we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.